The wicked seem to win, and the righteous suffer. But according to a 14th century mystic whose words were validated by 2 popes, God has a devastating and beautiful explanation for exactly why. You've seen it. A man builds his entire life on honesty, on faith, on sacrifice, and he loses everything. Meanwhile, someone cruel, someone corrupt, someone who doesn't give God a second thought, thrives. If you've ever watched that happen and felt a quiet rage in your chest, or worse, a quiet doubt, then this video is for you. Because in the 14th century, a Swedish noblewoman named Saint Bridget received a private audience that most theologians only dream about. She asked God directly why evil people prosper, and the answer he gave her is one of the most staggering things ever written down. In her revelations, Saint Bridget records God saying this: "My righteousness is such that each righteous person obtains what he or she desires. But then, and this is where it gets uncomfortable, because they do not care about righteousness and are not afraid to inflict injury on others, the impious prosper for a time." God says the wicked prosper not because he's asleep, not because he doesn't notice, but because of a terrifying principle buried in divine justice itself. He says if he sent suffering to those who don't fear him, they would sin even more. So he gives them ease, he gives them pleasure, he gives them everything they desire now, because it is all they will ever have. But Saint Bridget didn't stop at the answer. The voice she recorded went further. It told a parable. Imagine 2 sons. The first was born in a dark prison. He knows nothing but shadows and his mother's milk. The second was born in a small cottage with food, a bed, a maidservant. The mother says to the boy in prison, "Son, if you leave the darkness, you will have more delicious food, a softer bed, a safer home." The boy believed her because she promised him something just beyond his imagination, not a palace, just more than darkness. But the son in the cottage, she told him about a city, a contest where fighters are made kings, and every loser still wins. That son went to watch the stadium, and what he saw disturbed him. People were being knocked down, stripped, trampled, and no one raised a hand to fight back.
He went back to his mother and said, "I'd rather return to my cottage." And she said, and this is the line that should haunt you, "If you return to that cottage, vermin and snakes will come out of the shadows. And when you hear them, your ears shall tremble, and their bite will freeze the very strength within you." This, God tells Bridget, is what worldly prosperity looks like for the unrighteous. It is the cottage, and the snakes are coming. Saint Bridget's text gives us a second image, simpler, closer to home. A loving mother disciplines her son in boyhood. He doesn't understand. He's angry. He doesn't know what the punishment is for. But when he reaches the age of wisdom, he goes back to her and thanks her, because the discipline kept him from ruin. God says, "I treat my chosen ones the same way. I allow trouble to befall them, not because I've abandoned them, but because I am standing right beside them in the trouble." The suffering of a righteous person, Bridget is told, is not punishment. It is preparation. It is elevation. It is the contest where even those who fall are being fitted for a crown. This is where Saint Bridget's account becomes almost unbearable. The voice she records says this about worldly success for those who have rejected God. What does worldly prosperity mean for someone who abuses grace, if not a kind of descent into perdition? Every raise, every accolade, every promotion the wicked person receives is a step deeper into the hole. Meanwhile, every setback the righteous person endures is described as an ascension, a literal rise towards something permanent. To suffer in the world, the text says, is truly an ascension to life. But for the unrighteous, prospering in the world is truly a descent into hell. There's one more thread Bridget's text pulls on, and it explains something that has confused believers for centuries. God explains why he sometimes promises physical blessings to carnal-minded people. He did it with Israel. He gave them temporal goods, miracles, earthly victories, not as the final reward, but as training wheels. Why? Because people who only understand the visible need to learn about the invisible through what they can see. He gave them what they could grasp, so they could eventually reach for what they couldn't. He speaks of earthly glory, but means spiritual glory. He promises earthly suffering, but means spiritual medicine. The language of heaven translated into terms the human heart can survive hearing. Go back to the person you thought of at the beginning, the one who cheated and won, the one who lied and rose, the one who mocked everything sacred and seems untouchable. Saint Bridget's account gives us an answer that is not constable, but it is complete. The prosperity they enjoy is not a sign of God's favor. It may be the last gift they will ever receive. And the suffering you or someone you love has endured, if it was carried with faith, if it was offered up, if it was endured with even imperfect patience, God says, I was standing beside you in it, not watching from a distance, not sleeping, not indifferent, standing with you. Saint Bridget didn't receive a comfortable answer to her question. She received a true one. And sometimes, in a world that rewards the wrong people and punishes the right ones, the truth is the only thing that keeps you walking.
If this video opened your eyes, share it with someone who needs to see it. Hit that like button to help us spread the word, and subscribe because we're diving deeper into the forgotten treasures of our faith that could change your eternity.